This is Daily Armenia, CivilNet's daily news digest. Here's what's making headlines in Armenia today. Armenia's anti-corruption court ordered former President Robert Kocharyan into pre-trial detention today in a criminal case involving charges of abuse of authority, large-scale bribery, and money laundering. Kocharyan was arrested on Tuesday alongside his son Setrak, who was sent into pre-trial detention yesterday. Shortly after his arrest, the former president was briefly hospitalized with hypertension, but has since been transferred to a detention facility. In a press release on Tuesday, the Anti-Corruption Committee, which is in charge of the investigation, accused Kocharyan of embezzling state property and acquiring multiple real estate assets of public and economic importance at prices significantly below market value during his time in office. The press release also said Kocharyan registered these assets in the names of family members in an attempt to avoid prosecution. In the same investigation, former President Serge Sarkisyan was also charged with abuse of authority on Tuesday. Unlike Kocharyan, he is currently under a travel ban rather than arrest. Kocharyan served as president from 1999 to 2008. He was succeeded by Sarkisyan, who held the office for the next 10 years, before being ousted during the 2018 revolution. Since then, both former presidents have faced criminal charges on multiple occasions, but have so far avoided conviction. Kocharyan's latest legal troubles come shortly after the parliamentary election in June, in which he ran for prime minister with his Armenia alliance, which received 9.9% of the vote. Days after the election, Kocharyan was barred from leaving Armenia for what he described as a short private trip. Russia has accused Armenia of cracking down on Robert Kocharyan and other pro-Russian politicians, claiming that this runs counter to public sentiment in the country. This is an escalation of repressions against those political forces and individuals that advocate strengthening allied relations with Russia. Obviously, this contradicts the public demand in Armenia for developing bilateral ties. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said at a press briefing today. She also accused the European Union of cynically using Armenia and its citizens in its confrontation with Russia. References to other pro-Russian politicians facing criminal charges in Armenia may include billionaires Samvel Karapetyan and Gagik Zarukyan, who led the Strong Armenia and Prosperous Armenia parties, respectively, in the June election. Moscow has consistently portrayed Brussels as exploiting Armenia's vulnerabilities to advance its confrontation with Russia, often in language that critics say denies Armenia its own geopolitical interests. In a statement on Tuesday, the Russian Foreign Ministry described the Armenian government's calls for Moscow to give up its concession of Armenia's railways as Western blackmail. They demand the Russian factor be removed from Armenia's transport sector, promising millions in investments and involvement in questionable projects that are barely feasible. That is the spirit of the West's foul play aimed at squeezing Russia out of the South Caucasus, the ministry said. Russia controls Armenia's rail network under a monopoly concession agreement dating back to 2008, signed during Kocharyan's administration. The agreement has been widely criticized for neglect and underinvestment, accusations Russia denies, despite not completing a single major infrastructure project in more than 18 years. In January, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said Russian management deters foreign governments and companies that would otherwise like to use Armenian railways for international cargo transit. He urged Russia to sell its concession to a third country that maintains friendly relations with both Yerevan and Moscow, such as Kazakhstan or Qatar, and reiterated that call last week. Neither of those third countries has commented on the proposal, while Moscow has flatly rejected it as unacceptable and denied any shortcomings on its part. And finally, the CivilNet number of the day is 10,561. That's the number of residence permits issued to foreign nationals in Armenia in the first 6 months of 2026, compared with 6,656 in the same period last year, representing an overall increase of 59%. That's according to a new report released by the country's Interior Ministry. Armenia provides resident status on a number of grounds, such as business activity, marriage to an Armenian national, being an ethnic Armenian, or attending university in the country. And as always, Keep following CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.